Hello my crochet friends, this is Sarah from Ned and Mimi and welcome to part 3 of the Dream Catcher Cardigan video series. In parts 1 and 2 we crocheted the rectangle that forms the basis for the entire cardigan, and now we are ready to turn that rectangle into our finished project. You can find the written instructions for this section as part of the free pattern on my website nedandmimi.com or in the print friendly PDF, and all of those links are below this video. So now let's go right ahead and get this project over the finishing line. Okay, so here I have my rectangle finished. So once that's done, the next step is to create the arm openings or the armholes. And it's going to be super easy. So the most important thing before you start seaming is to make sure that you're looking at the right side of your square here, because we're going to be folding in the corners to create the sleeves and we want our seam to be on the inside. So do make sure that you are looking at the right side of your work here. So what we're going to do is fold in our corners like so. And one thing I forgot to mention actually was that when you finish your last corner on each side, leave a long tail, and we're going to use that for seaming. So now what we're going to do is seam along each of these edges. So the amount of space that you leave for the arm opening is completely up to you. So if you want a looser sleeve with a bit more space, just leave extra space here. Or if you want to have your sleeve very tight on the forearm, then leave less space, and that's going to determine the circumference of the sleeve. So I'm just going to grab my ruler, and I know for my size I'm going to leave about 6 inches. So just make sure that everything is lined up there, and I'll measure about 6 inches in, and then I'm just going to grab one of these sewing clips and just mark that there, and then I'm just going to pop a few more along where I'm going to seam just to hold everything together, and that's it. So all I need to do then is whip stitch all the way along. So I'm just going to work my way along the seam, just joining the two sides evenly, and you don't need to be an expert seamstress at this. I'm very amateur, but just do your best and it'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so my seam is done, and this is my armhole created here. So obviously you'll go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side, but before I go and do that, I am just going to flip around here to the right side of my work and show you how I am going to work the sleeve ribbon. Okay, so I am going to join a new strand of yarn in here at that seam line. So anywhere along there is absolutely fine. So I'll just yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I'm going to chain one. So now what I'm going to do is just single crochet evenly all around the edge of the armhole. Now this round is a bit more of an art than a science, so just work as evenly as you can, and I have given suggested stitch counts for this round in the pattern, but to be honest you don't need to worry about them too much. Just work as evenly as you can and do your best with it. So with the sleeve ribbing you have two different options. You can have a slightly wider sleeve, which just involves keeping this circumference here, or you can do a decrease round after this very first edge round, and that's just going to cinch in the sleeve a little bit. So I'll show you that once we get to the end of the round. But in any case, let's go ahead and get started. Now normally when we are working into the side of double crochet rows, we'll work 2 single crochets for each row. However, in this case, because all of these edge stitches are on the diagonal, they're actually taking up a little bit more space than normal. So you might find that for some of the rows you'll work 3 single crochets, and then for the next one you might only work 2. So just do your best with it. I'm going to aim for 3 single crochets in one row and then 2 in the next, and see how we get on with that. And also I like to work right through the middle of those edge stitches, so I'm going right down the center rather than working around the entire stitch. And I just feel that it gives a better finish and there's less gaps when you work right into the stitch. So away we go. Alrighty, so I'm back to the start of the round, and now I'm just going to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the round. So there you have it, that's our edging round done. Now if you decide that you want a more fitted sleeve, you can go ahead and work the decrease round as it's written in the pattern. So basically what we would do in this round is work a single crochet 2 together over the first 2 stitches, then a single crochet in the next stitch, then another single crochet 2 together, and so on all the way around. And that is just going to decrease the circumference of the sleeve a little bit. But I'm actually not going to do that. I want to have a looser, less fitted sleeve. So I'm going to go ahead and start my sleeve ribbing from here. Now, as with the armhole, you have a lot of flexibility here as to how long you want your sleeve to be. So I'm just going to go for a shorter sleeve trim here. But in the pattern, I have included an option for a much longer sleeve, but honestly, you can actually adjust the sleeve length in any way you like here, and we'll do that with our starting number of chains. So I'm just going to chain 8. Like so, and this is going to be the length of the sleeve. So for the first row, I am going to just skip the first chain from the hook and then single crochet all the way along the chain until we get back to the edge of the armhole. Okay, so that's my first row done, and I have a total of 7 stitches in that row. Now I want to join this first row of ribbing into that edge round of the armhole. So I'm going to slip stitch to the next stitch from that round, and that's that first row joined in, and then I'm going to work another slip stitch to the next stitch, and that is in place of a turning chain 1 that we would normally work when we're working with single crochet rows. So I'm just going to turn my work and a little bit upward with the cardigan, but there we go. And now I'm going to single crochet in the back loop all the way along that row. So I'm going to skip those 2 slip stitches and then single crochet in the back loop only all the way along for a total of 7 stitches in this row also. Okay, so that is row 2 done. So now I'm going to chain 1, turn my work again, and then simply single crochet all the way back along that row, again just working into the back loop. So let's just have a look at those slip stitches together. So we're going to slip stitch to the next single crochet, then we're going to slip stitch again in place of that turning chain 1, skipping the 2 slip stitches and single crochet in the back loop all the way along. And that is everything you need to know to be able to work the sleeve ribbing. So we're just going to repeat these 2 rows and just carry on all the way around the armhole. So I will go ahead and finish off this ribbing, and I'll see you back here very, very shortly. Okay, so I have finished my sleeve ribbing, and all that's left to do now is just seam these two edges together. So depending on the number of stitches that you had in your edge around here, you might finish on the outside of the ribbing for your last row, or you might finish on the inside like I have done here, and it honestly doesn't matter, either option is fine. So leave a fairly long tail here for doing your seaming, and we'll just fasten off. So to seam these two edges together, the easiest thing to do is just to turn the sleeve inside out and then whip stitch the edges together using this tail. So now that this sleeve is done, I will just go ahead and repeat the exact same steps on the other side. So I'm just going to fold in my edges, seam to create the armhole opening, and then just work the exact same steps for the second sleeve. So I will go ahead and do that now, and then I will see you back here very, very shortly to work the trim around the body opening. Okay, so I have worked both of my sleeves, and now I'm ready to go on to working around the body opening. So at this point, you just want to decide which is the bottom of your cardigan and which is the top. So I have found that seam line here, even though it is pretty invisible, but this is it. So I've decided this is going to be the bottom of my cardigan. So the first step in working around the body is to do exactly as we did for the sleeves, and we're just going to work around a single crochet all the way around. So we're going to just join a new strand of yarn in anywhere on the body opening. I'm just going to pick this bottom gap here and join it in. And then as we did for the sleeve, we'll chain one to start, and then just single crochet as evenly as we can all the way around the body. So here again, this is more of an art than a science. So there isn't an exact number of stitches that you are going for, just work as evenly as you can. And if you are unsure about whether to add an extra single crochet or not, I would err on the side of caution and add the stitch, because if this round is too tight, it's going to make the body opening a little bit tight, especially around the bottom of the cardigan. So definitely in this round, more stitches is better than fewer stitches. So at the end of the round, you will want to end up with an even number of stitches, and this is just going to make marking out the tapered collar a little bit easier. So I will just continue single crocheting all the way around now, and I will see you back here very shortly to crochet the body ribbing. Okay, so I am back to the start of the round, and I have counted my stitches just to make sure I have an even number, and now I'm just going to slip stitch back into that first single crochet to join, and that is the round complete. Now at this point you have two options for working the body ribbing. You can keep the ribbing the same width all the way around, or you can start off with the bottom section at the regular width and then taper the collar outwards a little bit so that the collar section is wider. So that is completely up to you. Now, if you are doing the tapered collar, you just need to mark out where it starts on this side and ends on this side. So we're just going to have a look at the seam here and find the single crochet that corresponds to that seam, and then I'm just going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches. And we'll pop the marker in there, and on the other side we'll do the exact same thing. So there's our seam. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, line. And before you get started, just do a quick count along the top section here to make sure you have an even number in between your two markers. And now away we go. So the body ribbing is going to be worked exactly the same way as the sleeves. So let me just flip everything around here to make it a little bit easier to get started. So I'm going to begin by chaining 10. And now I am going to single crochet back along that chain, starting in the second chain from the hook. And that gives me 9 stitches in this first row. Now, just as with the sleeves, we're going to slip stitch to the next single crochet at that edge round and another slip stitch to the next single crochet, and that counts as our turning chain. And then away we go, exactly the same as I did for the sleeve. So turning, skipping the 2 slip stitches, and then single crochet in the back loop all the way along. And I'm just going to continue working that ribbing pattern until I come to the first marked stitch. Okay, so I have worked my ribbing up to my first stitch marker here, and I have just joined this row here with my slip stitch. Now the next slip stitch should be going into the marked stitch, but if it isn't, don't worry, just move your marker down one and then do the same on the other side. So it might be a little different for you depending on exactly where you started the ribbing and the edge round. So what we're going to do now is very gradually increase the width of the ribbing for the collar, and then when we get to the opposite side we're going to decrease back to this point. So let's go ahead with the increases now. So I'll just pop out my stitch marker and I will join to the next stitch and turn. So I'm just going to work this row as normal until I get to the last stitch, and then I'm going to do my increase. And now in the last stitch, I'm just going to do 2 single crochets, and that's the increase done. Then I'll chain 1 and turn as normal. And this next row is just going to be a regular even row of single crochets. So I am not increasing on this row. Okay, so from this point on, I am just going to continue repeating those 2 rows. We'll work an increase on the outward row and then even on the return row. And we're going to keep doing that until I have a total of 19 stitches in my ribbing. So I have 9 here. I'm going to keep going until I have 19. Then I will work in even rounds all the way around to the opposite edge. And let's just pause for a second here just to mark out where we're going to stop to start the decreases. So this point here is where my decreases will finish, and I just want to get my marker and mark where I'm going to start the decreases. So I'm going to count 18 stitches from this marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and just pop my marker in there. So when I get to this marked stitch, that's where my decreases will start. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my increases and the rest of the collar now, and I'll see you back here very shortly to work the decreases. Alrighty, so we're on the home stretch. So I have worked my collar all the way around to the opposite side. So we have our nice taper here, a nice wide collar, at the top, and now we're just going to begin decreasing the width here so that we have a matching taper down to this point. So let's go ahead and get straight into that now. So I have stopped here on an outward row and my marker is in the next stitch of the edge round. Now, if you find that your ribbing position and the marker position is not landing exactly like I have here, don't worry about it. You're going to be very, very close based on this first marker, so you can just start decreasing from here, and the tapered sections on both sides should line up absolutely fine. So because my next stitch is the marked one, I'm actually going to start decreasing now on the inward row. So if you remember, on the other side we increased on the outward row, we're going to decrease on the inward row just to make sure they line up. So the decrease is going to be very, very simple. We are just going to chain one to start the row as always, and then I'm going to do a single crochet, 2 together through the back loop of the first 2 stitches, and that's it. That's the decrease done, and then I will just work away as normal until I reach the edge. Then I'll just work my 2 slip stitches as normal and turn as normal. So the next row is going to be an even row, so we're not decreasing here, and then the round after that is going to be the next decrease row, and we will just keep repeating those 2 rows until we are back to a total of 9 stitches in our row. And that's it. Then we just need to keep working the ribbing as normal until we get back to the start. So I'm going to continue on now with my decrease rows, and I will see you back here once the ribbing is complete. And there we have it. My collar is all done. So I have finished doing the decreases here on this side, and then I just continued on with my even ribbing rows all the way down to the bottom, and I have gone ahead and just seamed those 2 edges together exactly like I did for the sleeves. So now if you have any remaining ends to weave in, you can go ahead and do that, and your cardigan will be ready to wear. Thank you so much for joining me to make this crochet cardigan. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have, and of course if you do have a second to like this video and subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. And if you are ready for your next project, I have lots more free patterns and tutorials on my channel and on my website nedandmimi.com, so be sure to check those out. Happy crocheting and take care.